Not too long ago, we discussed some of the lesser-known Airbus A220 operators around the world. But for today's video, we examine carriers that have walked away from the type, or perhaps deferred it in some cases. These are airlines that initially signed deals but cancelled or swapped their orders, but there are also airlines that operated the type but later decided that operational challenges were just too costly. So, if you're ready, let's get started. We begin in Africa with Air Senegal. In November 2019, Airbus announced that the airline had signed a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, for 8 A220-300 aircraft. The first and only A220 arrived at the airline at the end of December 2021. However, it was in 2023 that the carrier decided to cancel its leasing contract to operate the type after lengthy delivery delays. In February 2023, as reported by Air Data News, Air Senegal fell victim to an unavailability of jets equipped with the Pratt & Whitney GTF engine, which has been repeatedly experiencing problems with systems and components. The one A220 that had been delivered eventually made its way over to Nigerian carrier EgyptAir, while Air Senegal officially swapped its commitment for A220s, making a commitment for A321neos instead. Air Vanuatu is next. At the end of February 2019, the airline had signed for 2 A220-100s and 2 A220-300s. The deal was significant in that it was the airline's first ever order with Airbus and also made Air Vanuatu the launch customer for the A220 in the Pacific region. But then, in July 2022, the airline announced that it would not move ahead with its order and would instead look at alternative options for its fleet development. The airline's CEO said it was focusing on domestic operations and with help from the government would go on to purchase 2 additional Twin Otters. We don't exactly know when Kyrgyz carrier Air Manas decided to operate the A220, but we know that it took delivery of its first and only A220 in April 2021. Per CH Aviation reporting, the airline had plans to add another later that same year and a further 3 by the end of 2023. Well, subsequent A220 deliveries would never happen, and Air Manas would go on to cease A220 operations. Strangely, however, the aircraft remains stored at the airline's main airport in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, and hasn't flown for a few years now. Odyssey Airlines is next. In January 2021, Simple Flying reported that the carrier was looking to commence services with premium direct business class flights from London City Airport to other major cities across the globe, relying on the Airbus A220-100 for this mission. After placing an order in the summer of 2013 for the A220-100, which was named the Bombardier CS-100 at the time, the airline's CEO shared that his company had a unique strategy to offer a high-quality premium-only service with a concentration on new destinations not otherwise offered from London City Airport. Well, at least 3 years have passed since we covered the airline and no progress has been made. The airline's website hasn't been updated since 2021, and our best guess is that the startup couldn't attract enough funding to launch operations. Going back to Africa, there's Nigerian startup Green Africa, which signed an MOU for a whopping 50 A220-300s back in February 2020. Notably, this was just before the COVID-19 pandemic was officially declared and global travel was mostly shut down. Unlike Odyssey Airlines, which never got around to launching services, Green Africa was able to begin flights, although not with the Airbus A220. Instead, it went with the ATR 72-600. These days, the carrier operates just 2 of these turboprop aircraft. A little bit of a tangent here, but it appears that the airline has been somewhat unlucky with its aircraft choices and timings, because in December 2018 it placed an order for up to 100 Boeing 737 MAX aircraft. This order was then cancelled following the grounding of the aircraft by regulatory authorities after the Ethiopian Airlines tragedy in March 2019. The airline confirms on its website that its decision to defer its A220 order was due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the industry. So it appears that this airline hasn't officially walked away from the A220 just yet. But who knows how long this order will remain on the books. As we've seen with United's Airbus A350 order, commitments can remain in limbo for years and years. Over in Russia, Red Wings had plans to lease 6 Bombardier CS-300s, now A220-300s. The first of the jets was supposed to be delivered in 2019, although even at that time the aircraft had not yet been certified to fly in Russia. And, well, by March 2019 it was revealed by Russian aviation insider that the carrier had abandoned its plans to operate the A220. Instead, it would concentrate on operating Airbus A320 family aircraft until the arrival of Russia's MC-21. It was noted that Red Wings backed out of the deal because of A220 price increases. Tamara Sudakova, representative for Russia's largest leasing company, told Russian Aviation Insider at the time, "The price of the aircraft increased, which led to the escalation of the leasing rate. Therefore, the contract with GTLK was annulled. The aircraft will be remarketed as there's demand for this type on the market." Then, in 2021, another Russian carrier would flirt with the idea of operating the A220. It was at the Moscow International Air Show at Zhukovsky Airport that Azimuth announced its intention to lease 6 A220-300s from Air Lease Corporation, or ALC. Deliveries would have been scheduled for 2022 and 2023, and the jets would have had a single-class cabin layout with 148 seats. Well, you might recall that Russia was placed under heavy sanctions in early 2022 due to its decision to invade Ukraine, and this effectively killed Azimuth's plans to bring the A220 to Russia. Perhaps the most notable carrier to abandon A220 operations is EgyptAir. The airline had 12 A220-300s in its fleet, although most of the time large portions of this subfleet were sitting on the ground. As reported by Times Aerospace, EgyptAir's experience with the aircraft was quote-unquote less than happy. Like many A220 operators, EgyptAir was having issues with the type's Pratt & Whitney geared turbofan engines. The power plant's combustion chamber was mentioned specifically by Times Aerospace. According to Arabian Aerospace magazine, citing then-chairman of EgyptAir, the issue was sufficiently serious to require the unscheduled replacement of no fewer than 15 of the 24 engines on the wing within the first 2 years of their service. Times Aerospace notes that EgyptAir's problems have appeared with other A220 operators, but notes that the harsh operating conditions of the Middle East are thought to have exacerbated problems. This is exemplified with nearby Middle Eastern carrier Iraqi Airways having most of its A220s on the ground, although that carrier continues to include the type in its operations. EgyptAir announced that it would be selling its fleet to acquire new Airbus widebodies instead. According to CH Aviation, at the time of making this video, 3 airframes have been relocated, with 2 of these going to Breeze and another to Cyprus Airways. 9 more remain listed as inactive and are likely waiting for new engine components so that they can be flown out of Egypt and over to other carriers. And then the last thing to note is that Korean Air may abandon its A220 operations in the future due to its merger with Asiana, assuming the deal goes through. The reason, reported by Bloomberg News, was to streamline its diverse fleet post-merger. The news gained enough traction and attention that Korean Air had to clarify that it had no immediate plans to retire any of its 10 A220-300 aircraft. And so you can see that airlines have moved away from the A220 for quite a wide variety of reasons. Such reasons include sanctions, the pandemic, delivery delays, and supply chain issues, which themselves have their origins in the pandemic. Engine issues are a big reason as well, and again, these have only been made worse due to supply chain issues. Nonetheless, most passengers would agree that the A220 is a pleasure to fly, given its larger windows and 2-3 configuration. But, well, perhaps it's not as pleasant to manage the A220 as a small airline, particularly in hot environments. So, what do you think of these airlines and their respective decisions to cancel, defer, or retire the A220? Let us know by leaving a comment. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.